Welcome to Mistakes Over Failure. I am Dr. Christine Crawford.
And I'm Leslie Wingo.
And on today's episode, we are joined by Hannes Chopra. Welcome, Hannes. We're grateful to have you.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Christine, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Would you please introduce yourself to our community?
I'll happily do so. I was born in Germany. My parents were actually the first Indian exchange students in Germany after the World War and Indian independence. I have an elder brother, a younger sister. I grew up in Germany, and this was the time when in our school there were 1,000 kids and 3 foreigners, my brother, my sister, and me. Times have really strongly changed. I did most of my career with Allianz, International Insurance Group. And for them, I went to Russia, where I spent 15 years. And I was heading one of their largest, or the largest emerging market unit they had, the insurance group. And after that, I built an insurance company from scratch for the largest Russian bank. And I did actually for my own development, I did an education as executive coach. So I'm a certified executive coach. And that grabbed me. So just working with people and, of course, hopefully making a difference, but learning a lot yourself really became my passion. And since 6 years, I'm in leadership development. And I manage CEOs and I help CEOs in any leadership transformations they have and their teams. Separately, I also teach in university and I manage a small fintech fund. And I live in Barcelona now for 6 years. I have twin boys, Raj and Samir, and my wife, the most beautiful thing I took from Russia, Natasha. And again, I'm very happy to be here and honored.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you some questions. Just know one of them is repetitive because you already answered it. So you ready? All right. Where are you from?
Germany, Indian parents, but I feel myself very much a citizen of the world.
How many languages do you speak?
I guess it's 7. My boys would say 5 because they think I'm so bad in the other 2 that they shouldn't count.
What are the 2 that they think that you're bad in?
French and Spanish.
What is your favorite book?
My favorite book, if you allow me, I would name 2. A Russian writer, or Soviet writer, Konstantin Paustovsky, Stories from Life. It's very difficult to get. An amazing person who manages to describe nature and how it relates to human feelings and back. The second one would be How Will You Measure Your Life from Clayton Christensen, a Harvard professor who writes about what really matters in life.
What was your first job?
My first job as a teenager, I'm very much into music. I was doing Indian music and I got paid for it. It's not really, I wouldn't consider it a job. I don't know whether I deserved it. Like real job would be, I did an apprenticeship in Germany when I was 19, learning export and wholesale in Hamburg. And that was a proper job with monthly payments. So that probably would count more.
Business acronyms, do you love them or hate them?
They are needed. And especially if you're in large organizations, they can help to reduce complexity by having a language. But like with everything, the question is how much you use them. If this becomes your main way to communicate, not good.
What emoji do you use most often?
I think the one, thank you, this one is the one I use most.
And what led you to YPO?
A very good friend of mine, an icon in YPO, it was in Russia at that time, Johnny Manglani. He told me, look, we met actually by coincidence. And then he said, I think you fit into YPO. We went to one event on the meaning of life with Swami Parthasarthi, who runs a Vedanta Academy in India. And after the meeting, I was not thinking about joining YPO, but my wife was approached by one of the spouses. And she pushed me, said, look, this was so nice. I had such a great conversation. I'm actually already part of a forum. I said, of what? So you have to become a member. So that's why I became a member.
That's a great story. So what has YPO given you? So what is the thing your favorite thing that you've learned during your YPO journey?
It's very difficult to say because there's so many things. And Because, life is not static, that you learn something and now you're on this level and then it goes further. Life is cyclical. We every now and then perhaps hear the same thing, but at different times, the same thing gives us so much more and a different angle of meaning. For me, the most important thing and what I found most impressive about YPO is it is a community. It is not a club. It is not an organization. It is a community. I go to people and immediately there's a connection which you don't feel so easily somewhere else. So wherever I go, I write to the chapter and people reach out. They open their heart and their home as if we know each other for decades. That for me is something where YPO is a game-changing experience of life.
You mentioned you're a global citizen. So I can't even imagine where your brain is in terms of culture and understanding culture. But how do you explain cultures and the importance of cultures to people who might not consider themselves global citizens?
Look, to get this right, I aspire to be a global citizen, and I think I fail more than I manage. What I meant by that global citizen is more that, in my view, there is only one true identity, which we three and everybody else have in common. We are from the same background and breed and race. We have one humanity. There's this beautiful, over 3,000-year-old saying in the scripture, in the Upanishad, the old Indian script, the whole world is one family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And I truly believe that the real true identity is that I have a soul of the same quality and beauty as you have. And it's the same origin. And whatever we see, the way I look, where my parents come from, the country I'm part of, the behaviors I have, the values I have, that comes on top. So I try not to mix identity, which I believe is soul, and there's no difference there, with what comes on top. And never make the things which come on top a reason to fight, because they are not really the deep-rooted thing. So I always take the example. It's also in the Vedanta philosophy. They give this example of imagine a huge ocean, and every human being is a glass you take, and you take water out of the ocean. Now, is this what is in there different or the same? It is very unique. You will never get another, if you take another glass of water, it'll never be the same. But the essence is the same. It is from the ocean. And this duality, actually non-duality, because it's the same and not the same at the same time, for me is the basis when I say I aspire to be a global citizen, not to see differences where there actually aren't some, and always remember that we are one breed. This is what I strongly believe. So culture is one of the important, but item which comes after the clarity that we are one identity. And then it becomes fascinating. And then it becomes something where I'm only interested, Leslie or Christine, in you and in your identity and what I can learn from that because I don't have it. It becomes enriching, not threatening. Because on the fundamental level, we are the same. Glass of water from the ocean.
You've led businesses in very different countries.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see us as being glasses of the same water and identity, but what leadership lessons in terms of managing have you had to adapt because cultural differences, and what suggestions would you give to those who are thinking about expanding or going to be running a business in a new country?
Look, in working in different cultures, if we look at leadership, let me start from this. Let's make it simple. I believe in simplicity. As I think Leonardo da Vinci said, simplicity is the most sophisticated way of excellency. So let's look at the four aspects, I believe, of leadership. Leading self, leading others, leading an organization, and leading transformation. And when you go somewhere else, The biggest challenge as a leader, I believe, is on the leading self part to accept humility more than you would have to anywhere else. Because you're coming in. So all the qualities in leading self, empathy, compassion, active listening, self-reflection and self-action, they become even more important because it's a new territory. And once you embrace things and you see, oh, this is how things are happening here, this is how things are happening, decide for yourself, where is the border where my authenticity starts and ends, and where do I embrace what is new? And find this line where you say, I'm walking on this. So be open to increase your circle, because you're somewhere else, apply new things, try new things, but also know, look, there is a boundary. And that's where I will not be disrespectful, but I will be like honest and true to my authenticity. I can give you one example.
Please.
When I came to Russia, and one of the, and of course a very disputed topic now, but I mean, history always teaches us lessons. I came from Germany. I was the CEO coming from Germany, and everybody knows what happened in history and how brutally the Nazi government in Germany at that time brought a world war into the world, and also how brutal this war was for Russia. How many, Soviet Union at that time, how many people died. And in Russia, they always celebrate the 9th of May as the day of victory. So the end of the Second World War. 8th of May in Western Europe, but because of the time difference, it was already 9th of May. So they celebrate 9th of May in Russia. I'm a newly appointed CEO. My head of PR comes to me and said, look, 9th of May, Day of Victory, is a huge thing in Russia. So we will have a small arrangement down in the canteen. We need a message from you. We will celebrate like this. We will have this and that. And I've prepared the message you should send to everyone. And I look at the message. I say, Tatiana Ivkina, my head of PR, what a wise lady. I said, Tatiana, I can't send this. This is not me. But I respect, I understand, I should say something. Will you give me a night and I will tell you what I would write? And I wrote a very personal message about how I have experienced this in Germany, what I've learned about this horrible world war, and what it tells me. And I made it a personal message and sent it around. So it was a bit the border that, yes, it's an important day, but I can't talk generally about it because I come from a country, I mean, there is something where we really started this. When I say we, I can't always just take the good things. And to show really compassion and empathy, I made it a very personal message. So there's always a border when you need to say, okay, there's something I should respect, but don't become a puppet. And that would be one of the things.
And as you develop your leadership style and started piecing things together, the things that worked for you, was there a mentor or a coach that was heavily involved in those conversations for you?
Look, I learned from one of my good friends from South Africa, this beautiful saying, we are what we are through other people. You know, this whole idea of Ubuntu.
Yeah.
My goodness, what a deep wisdom. So there are so many. There are so many. And look, none of us ever makes it alone. Never. I haven't met a single person. And those who don't talk about it, in my humble opinion, just don't want to talk about it. For me, there have been many. Of course, everything always starts with parents. A very important person in my life was my musical teacher, Dr. Trina Purohit Roy. I learned Indian music from her in the classical way. So music has become a language for me. So when I came to Russia, I couldn't speak the language. I was invited to many events, birthdays, company events, marriages. And it's very common in Russia to speak toasts. And you don't speak a toast, you have to. everybody, like all of us here in the room, you would start, you're the next, and then at some point everybody looks at you and say, man, you really want to like be the one not saying something? So it became my go-to style that I sang a song for them. So this lady, Dr. Trina Poroit-Roy, actually I've been very lucky that my soccer trainer, Herr Fuhl, my mentor in the first company I worked for, Bayersdorf AG, Bernd Höbbel, Klaus Juncker in Allianz, many people have always been real kind well-wishers to me. And that has continued throughout my life. So there's many people who have had either visibly or invisibly their hand and heart over me, and that helped me grow.
So you shared with us that you have twins.
Yes.
Where do you see home for them? Do you see it being the globe as you aspire for yourself, or do you think they'll want to put roots somewhere? And
yes, I have twin boys. They're 17, Raj and Samir, 8-minute difference. And it's so interesting, Christine, that you mentioned them right now, because as an afterthought to your question, Leslie, I thought nowadays my biggest mentors are actually my twins. Because they challenge me in ways which nobody else can challenge. Again, relating to what I said before, I hope they will always remember that first and foremost, they're humans. They're one glass of water. And everything else should be a choice, should be an add-on, but should never become existential. Because, at times it can feel very different and very difficult, not different, very difficult. My wife is Russian. I was born in Germany, but my parents are Indian. We live now in Spain. So what is like, exactly as you say, where is home for me? I always tell them, see this as an opportunity, not a burden. Because your identity is, if you believe in God, whatever, call it soul, call it being God's child, whatever. But this is your identity. Everything else, make it a choice, not a burden. So it was very interesting, Christine, when we were in Russia and they were asked, okay, who are you? Where are you from? They would say, we are Germans. And my wife would always tell me, it's so funny. They don't have a drop of German blood in them, but they say they are Germans. So since we live in Spain, they would say, okay, we are Russians. And we have a dad whose parents are from India. So they can choose and should choose whatever they want. But as good as it gets, this is where we are now. If we would do this discussion or in a few years from now, I would tell you a different story.
I would love to see the response or what people look like when they say where they're from, because we use that question as a mental shortcut to answer a lot of questions.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so to be so many different things and not an assumption, I think that's quite remarkable.
Leslie, that's a very kind way of expressing it. I appreciate it. The truth is, if you don't look at it this way, in my experience, it can become a very destructive and identity-searching, difficult aspect. Professor Amartya Sen, one of a Nobel Prize winner for peace, he wrote a book about how a lot of violence is actually related to searching your identity. So it's a bit more than a beautiful philosophical way of looking at it. It can become existential if you don't start from the point that, look, you are who you are, and that's great. And you have all of God's graces with you, like with everybody else. Stay there, stand there. And everything else comes on top. But don't make this search your key identity search, because third, fourth culture kids, it will be really challenging. And this can lead to violence. And there's research how it leads to this. So it goes a bit further than just, a philosophical view.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I thought you brought up that was really interesting was how being from Germany and growing up in that culture, but that you had to remember the good and the bad of it and take that with you and couldn't. a lot of times people say that by doing that, you're not being patriotic, right? And that you don't love where you're from or where you grew up. How do you help embolden people to understand that taking the lessons and the bad it may be even more important, right? At times than some of the good.
You know, one of the things, at least I learned in my life, you literally learn nothing from success. And in a similar way, there's very little you learn from the good, except to know, maybe I do this more. And otherwise, all the learning is in the other area. The bad, the failing, the not managing, the struggle, the discomfort. And in that way, it even becomes a bit of seeking discomfort in daily life. So I always tell my clients, comfort is not where you should be and where we are made for. You know, I think it's the longest living group of human beings in Japan and Ireland. And one of their rules is we only eat 80%. You feel you're 80% full, stop eating. Doing ice baths, doing things which don't become existential, but discomfort. So I also try in my life always to do things where there's an element of discomfort, because that's where the growth is. And our challenges in our times and Professor Arthur Brooks has really done some amazing work on this. Mother Nature plays with us. Mother Nature doesn't like discomfort. It always gives us the signal, don't seek risks, seek rewards. And that is counterintuitive, that seek a bit of risks. Go into the zone where discomfort starts. That's where growth happens. Now, our ancestors were always in such situations because how life was. We can live a life where we are completely happy, content, no discomfort, driving our kids there, having this vacation, not realizing we're not doing ourselves a favor by that. So that's why searching for discomfort, looking deeper into where the bad is, looking deeper into where might be my bias, becomes a bit of a drive in my life, and it has become like that.
As an executive coach, is this something that is taught to leaders, or are leaders inherently given this skill?
That's something I challenge leaders with always. I told you about these 4 areas of leadership as I see them. And the most difficult and most demanding one is really the leading self. And I always tell leaders and CEOs, you want any change, it always starts with you. You want to grow, you want to learn, people will sense it. And growth starts with, what is one new thing you will start tomorrow, and where is discomfort in your life which you seek? And look, in my example, I started over 2 years ago when I was for a teaching assignment in Thailand, Thai boxing, Muay Thai. And every time I go, my kids know it and they laugh about me always. It's such a discomfort. And the more I do this, now my trainer likes to do sparring. So 6 rounds of 3 minutes. Christine, Leslie, 3 minutes are an eternity.
That's a long time.
When you're pushed somewhere, and he sees how I'm reacting, and I realize, my goodness, I thought I'm somewhat strong. The first push, I feel something. I'm completely in my reptilian brain and become completely hectic. It is so humbling. And it is always discomfort. But there's a voice in me saying, man, come on, do it. I will never win a prize there. And I will never become anything even close to competing anywhere. But it always puts me into this mode of, come on, do it. Stay on. So I always advise, do 2 or 3 things which are new and 1 thing which is discomforting, but keep on doing it a little bit. And you know, Leslie, when you look at, I've observed my kids embracing skateboarding. We came new to Spain and they had some friends in school and they started skateboarding. And I was watching them for hours and hours. Oh, this loud skateboard falling again. falling again. Like how kids learn when they grow up and learn walking. And this is what I always remind myself and them when they tell me, oh, Dad, in the school, I can't do this. I say, look, I have a video. I show them the video. You do skateboarding. This is the boy who was skateboarding for hours. You tell me you can't do that? Come on, it's very easy. But keeping the spirit of learning something new, failing, improving a little bit. And there's a lot of research which tells us the irony of excellency is if we don't constantly try new things and fail and accept we are new, we will go through a valley. We will not be good. We will be even worse. We will be even bad. And then get better slowly. We lose excellency. And the more successful we become, and the more we become, speakers and something else, we focus too much on the part where we're excellent, and we stop learning new things, which actually help our brain to develop and which help us to grow further. So in that way, I think it is fundamental for us to embrace this. And as I said, in our normal lives, we are not given this anymore. This was a given before. Everybody was struggling for something. I mean, ancestors, even before, you had to be careful, you will have lunch or you will become somebody's lunch. We are out of those times. So we have to bring this in a bit more for our own sake.
How can business leaders encourage and support environments where they encourage their teams to learn?
First is, Christine, that, as I said, you be an example. And then you create space. You really create space where a team can grow. And you accept, especially nowadays world, if you really recruit people who are great, give them space and accept that you don't have the answers. When I was starting my career in Allianz, the world was very different. And every Tuesday there were board meetings in Allianz. And we were literally waiting for our board member to come back and then tell us what was happening, and then it would be clear what would be our priorities. There was some information available for some people, and then it was cascaded down. It makes a lot of sense to have a hierarchical structure then. We live in a completely different world. There's no limit of knowledge of anything anymore. We shouldn't be leading anymore with the idea that there's something I know more. There's something where I can empower more. That's my role. So that's what I mean with giving space. And giving space really means creating an environment where people are encouraged to speak up. Creating an environment where I train myself in active listening. Creating an environment where I specifically seek out the non-agreeing opinions. I present something or somebody presents something, and my first question should be, if I would be moderating this, I really want to hear people who completely disagree. Please speak up. And from that, seeing how I come to alignment. And very often I see in leaders the different impulse. Great presentation. Anybody disagrees? Nobody speaks up. Great, decided. Come on. The beauty of people, if we would be in a team, the beauty of you, Leslie, the beauty of you, Christine, is you will bring your way of looking at this reality. And this will be so different to mine. But I need to give you time that you can bring it on and treat you like equals. That would be a lot on the environment creation, that people speak up. And then there's a couple of real concrete tools. How am I able to delegate? How do I teach them to delegate? What are the communication skills we have in the company? So that becomes very practical, but that's really from where it starts.
We name this podcast Mistakes Over Failures, where we see mistakes as something like what you're speaking of, where you take a big chance and you learn from whatever that was, and a failure as doing something over and over and over again, expecting the same result. And so what, if there are any, what have been some of your favorite mistakes?
There is, and there's a lot of fascinating, very recent research about mistakes and failures. Amy Edmondson wrote this fascinating book, The Right Kind of Wrong, where she describes different categories of failures. And this one category where there is somewhat a rule book, but the process was in a way not followed the way it should be, it's very easy to correct. You like step back, you look at the process, you see was there a lack of training, you adjust. And the real fascinating, what she calls complex failures, are the ones where you really go into new territory and you just try out and you expose yourself. And that's where failures and learnings are really there. The learnings on the basic failures, what I described before, are very limited. So when leaders say we want a failure culture, I say, hang on, no. You don't want people, if you're a bank, staying at the ATM and standing and trying to get cash, and then a message comes up, sorry, we are currently in an agile training mode, no cash today, but come back in 2 weeks. No, simple operational failure. Nobody gains anything out of it. So if we look at complex failures, and let me answer your question, complex failures, there's quite a few. We had an idea when I was in Russia and running an insurance company. We recruited a couple of agents, or basically invited them to us from who were general agents, and we wanted to motivate them to sell more our products. And we twisted our products so they would be able to sell more. It was a big mistake at the end. Why? We frustrated our existing agents, and secondly, we completely overloaded our operational platform with little twisted products, but they were still little twisted products, so a separate product. Not a good idea, and the motivator was not right, that we just get agents instead of saying, look, what would be anyhow refurbished products which customers need? That would be one mistake. The second mistake, I would say, is, and I have a few examples of that, where I tried to change too many variables at once. So a new product comes out at the same time you go into a new country or you approach a new customer segment. And the problem is, if it goes bad, you don't know in which of those areas is the failure, because you did 3 things simultaneously. Even worse, when it goes well, you don't even know where to double down on. So that would be a second, let's say, area of mistakes. There's many of them.
What advice would you give your sons as they embark upon their careers?
Advice number 1, never listen to advice. Literally, the famous mystic and philosopher Sadhguru always says, as parents, don't give any advices. Because knowing how to live, you know as little as your kids. You just have the benefit of a few more years of knowing a few tricks, how to show yourself in a way you want, but you don't know much more about life. And I think that's very true. So don't listen to advice would be clearly one thing. The second advice would be, whatever you do in life, throw yourself in, do it with focus and intensity. It doesn't matter what it is. If you enjoy playing football, play football, but do it with focus and intensity. If there's something else you want to do, always have these 2 elements. And if you do that, you will grow in tremendous ways. That would be my second advice. The third advice, which, look, they are very free to do what they want. The only thing I told them, and they are 2 boys, you need something, which was very easy with them. They love sports. You need to be busy with one sport at least. And the second thing, whether you like it or not, there will be music in your life. So they play the violin. They play also some of the Indian instruments I play. And some way to make sure that they get a good basic background and basis in mathematics. These are 3 areas, and frankly, the rest, I really don't care. The fourth advice would be, which honestly speaking, Christine and Leslie, is more an advice to me, trust in yourself. So I have very strong views on education. And I was wondering when they were about to enter school, and when we came to Spain especially, what school would I put them in? And I was, imagining myself, they are 40 years old. I'm sitting with them and they're asking me, Dad, why did we go to that school? And by the way, why did we go to school in general? And I realized if I would go for the usual choice, I would have no other answer than saying, well, everybody goes to school. And I felt that's not a very good answer because I'm their father, not everybody. So I was deliberately looking for schools where I felt they will really make a difference in their life. And so I chose a school where they will go. Learn Life, if anybody's interested, learnlife.org. It's a fascinating school, innovative school. And when they went into it, it was a startup. They didn't have any accreditation. I thought to myself, I spoke with my wife, I said, look, I trust my boys. They will make their way. And I'm okay to have this conversation. Imagine what I said when they're 40 years old. Why do you put it in the school? To tell them, look, I felt you will gain a lot. And accreditation, look, it's a label you get. You will find your way without this. Well, they got accredited now, so I was lucky. But what I'm trying to say for them, literally believe in yourself and make this more important than any labels. Oh, this is the best school. It is this great university. There's this degree. Come on. I didn't want to lie to them every day, telling them, do your homework, because it's important for you, knowing it makes no sense. There's nothing they will remember even a week after. So this would be some advices.
Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience about leadership and your journey, YPO? Have we missed anything?
Look, I believe that YPO is, as I mentioned in the beginning, and if it's not YPO, anything else, but I believe YPO is probably the most unique community you can find as a business leader. If it's not YPO, make sure you have your community of people who challenge you and where you can approach yourself on as equals. My second thing I would say, don't underestimate the challenges with all the transformation and the uncertainty in the world going on yourself, but mostly for your employees. It's not a coincidence that we have an increase in mental health issues, that people are literally lost. Help them with that, with proper learnings, leadership education, which is not the stuff you would have done 5 or 7 years ago. And don't expect them to know what to do because you offer them something little. You need a proper journey for them that they don't become the next cases. So, and there's a lot of new skills they have to learn, which they didn't learn in their upbringing. And you as a leader are responsible to make sure that they have also emotionally all the tools to navigate through life. Because guess what? Them not being happy in life or being challenged with something very personal has an immediate effect on your work. So you better take care of that. That would be my second big message.
I have one question for you. Could you share and describe your favorite piece of music?
My favorite piece of music, and again, there is so many. Which comes to my mind is the opera Nabucco of Verdi, and there is a choir of the prisoners, and it is Va Pensiero, it's called. Go into YouTube, hear it. It's like 5 minutes. Close your eyes. It literally, the sound goes to your soul and out. An incredible piece of music. I would strongly recommend this. Another piece of music I love, it's unfortunately he passed away, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, a Qawwali singer from Sufi belief. And he has amazing music. Again, mesmerizing stuff. Night Flight is one of his albums. Tere Bina is the which basically means without you, is an amazing song. So this would be perhaps two I would recommend.
All right. Well, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
and sharing so much about your life and your philosophies with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you really for the great questions and for the honor of being here.
Thank you, Hannes.
Thank you.
Thank you.